join me in welcoming DigitasLBi's North American CEO, Tony Weisman, and the iconic founder and CEO of Vice Media, Shane Smith.
Thank you all for being here. Shane, thanks for coming out.
This is weird.
Are you feeling spiritual?
It's weird. Hi.
It's going to be okay.
Oh, hi. I know you. I'm just going to look at you. I know you too. How are you?
It's not a confessional. You're going to be cool. But you're going to confess some things here in a minute.
All right.
For those handful of you here who may not know Shane Smith, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an Emmy-winning journalist, a media visionary, founded Vice as an adult cult magazine in Montreal in 1994. So 21 years later, he leads a global media empire operating in 30 countries. That empire spans an international network of digital channels, Vice News, Munchies, Motherboard, noisy, award-winning production studio, Emmy-winning HBO show, magazine record label, book publishing, etc. You've probably seen Shane traveling the world as a terrific journalist, going where most people fear to go, to the world's hotspots and getting the truth, including places like Iran, Afghanistan, North Korea. One of those hot spots that Shane traveled to recently was Washington, D.C., where the president agreed to sit down with Shane and do an interview.
That was after the coup.
What's the line?
The first order of business is to invade Canada and annex their beer.
Wow, so the president really loved that, didn't he?
I think he thought I was taking the piss with the eye patch, because I had a corneal abrasion and I had to wear the eye patch for a couple of days around the White House, and then there was a state dinner and I didn't have the eye patch, and he's like, "You're just making fun of me the last 2 days."
And you're like, right?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
But I did take credit for making fun of him.
Okay, so we have a short clip of you with the president.
Okay.
All right, let's take a look at you.
Hello, Atlanta!
Are you a masochist? We're not acting in a sane and rational way.
That's disturbing. Let's take something like climate change.
Let's. You know, it seems that from the outside, that...
From the inside, too. I'm embarrassed for them to address a letter to the Ayatollah, who they claim is our mortal enemy. And their basic argument to them is, don't deal with our president, because you can't trust him to follow through on an agreement. It's close to unprecedented. This is the last question.
Our number one question from everyone on the internet. For young people, I'm sorry, but if you legalized marijuana, it would be the biggest part of your legacy. So what are your thoughts on that?
That was terrific, and you'll have to watch it to hear the president's response, which is appropriately nuanced. Vice News gets that opportunity, and you get that opportunity to actually sit down with the president and talk about some really wide-ranging and meaty issues, because Vice News is very credible and really delivering insightful news to an audience that I think a lot of people, when you first started doing it, people were skeptical. Kids don't, follow news. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, everything we've done, everyone says no when we first do it. And when we first started doing news, everyone said, well, it's a given. Young people don't care about news, and they especially don't care about international news. And then when we started the news vertical, it became the fastest growing online news platform in the world, overnight. And in our first year, we did hundreds of millions of video views. We won 2 Peabodys, we won an Emmy, all these different things. And the good news is everyone took it as a given that you can't do it, so there's nobody else in that space. So we get that a lot. We go into white spaces because nobody else is there, because it's a given that you just can't do it that way. And we're like, well, why? I mean, I don't understand why, who made that rule?
Right.
So that's where, I mean, we're doing the same thing with sports, we're doing the same thing with food. We're pretty much doing the same thing with everything. Yeah.
And what have you learned as you've done that first and then these other verticals about what is it that really gets these audiences that really lean in and care?
Well, I think, you know, somebody asked me that question the other day and said, you know, what are you doing to disrupt news? And I said, well, we're actually doing news. Because in America today, you have sort of op-ed talk radio on the right, and you have comedy on the left, pointing their fingers at the right and saying how stupid they are. But no one's actually going to the place and pressing record. Mm-hmm. And so we just said, why don't we just have non-paradigmic, non-partisan, just go to the place. A lot of times, for example, what we're doing in Baltimore right now or in Nepal is we just live stream with no commentary. So you can just make up your own mind, because today's, you know, media consumer is the most savvy of all time. Mm-hmm. They don't need the voice of God. They don't need someone telling them what they should think about this. So you just say, here it is, and the numbers are staggering when you look at them. And, you know, I always say this demographic, Gen Y, is the most sophisticated of all time. Why? Because they've been marketed to since they were kids. Cartoons are made to sell cereal. So you have to sort of circumvent the bullshit detector, and the only way to circumvent the bullshit detector is to not bullshit. And just say, okay, here it is, and you can make up your own mind.
So it's been a huge success with the HBO partnership, and some news I know you can talk about. Recently, you expanded that HBO partnership, so congratulations on that. Now you're even going into daily.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we started with HBO, it was an experiment, and the experiment, business only works if it's good for both sides, and it worked really well for HBO, and, you know, obviously worked very well for us. And the beautiful thing about that is, probably the wrong audience to say this to, but, you know, Crest doesn't want to be next to severed heads. So news is inherently hard to monetize, and also you want to keep it sort of, you know, you want to be able to have, you know, complete editorial freedom. So the news sort of partnership with HBO allows us a daily show, a weekly show, and specials that we can then put on all of our other platforms around the world. And it's actual, you know, it's total freedom in the news space, which is almost unprecedented. So we're really stoked about that.
It's awesome. And you're experimenting with them with over the top. I mean, you've got sort of, it really is a multi-channel operation. So how do you think about that?
Well, they're smart. They're moving into digital and OTT, and we're moving into features and terrestrial. Right. So they're the best at what we do, we're the best at what, hold on a second now. They're the best at what they do, we're the best at what we do. And if I always say, union fait la force, you know, together we are stronger. So they're learning from all of the stuff that we've done digitally and mobile, and they're, you know, and we're learning from all the stuff. I mean, they're the best at sort of, especially marketing features, which we're going to be doing a lot more of.
So you talk about what brands are comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with. Yeah. You have a lot of brands who have been on the journey with you because of your authentic connection. So what have you learned, and what have the brands that have been along with you learned about how to make that connection?
Well, you know, that's probably the question, and I think it's the question for NewFronts. I think there was a dissatisfaction with how advertising worked online. You know, banner ads, display. Bob Pittman actually said something in the green room. He's ignoring me now. Are you using this? I'm allowed to use it now? He was saying that, you know, it used to be that in World War II they would send up flak and hope that the plane drove into it, but now they have heat-seeking missiles and it's a lot more efficient. And I think that, you know, online basically showed the good things about TV and the bad things about TV and the shotgun approach. And everybody fell in love with native advertising, and we were sort of at the forefront of this native advertising revolution, which makes sense, which is if we're going to create content, why not have the same teams that create that content, create the media around that content so it's seamless, it actually does its job, et cetera, et cetera. And that's true. It works. Now, it's not necessarily the best you can do, and what we pioneered, I believe anyway, were things like the Intel Creators Project, where we actually partnered with a brand, and at the expense of other brands, so there would be no more noise, and created a vertical, created a media entity for that brand. And when we got picked up in China by the Travel Channel there with 350 million eyeballs a week, on top of all the online stuff we're doing, they came to us and said, how much is that going to cost us? Right. And we said, well, that's free. Or when we did commercials for AT&T out of our digital program that outperformed their regular commercials, they said, well, how much is that going to cost us? And we said, well, that's for free. So I think we started really looking at how we can partner, and that, if Intel, doesn't have bong bong bong, or doesn't, have product placement, we could actually put that as content all over the world, as earned media instead of bought media. And so as we sort of went into that space, we realized we could do a lot more in the TV space. We could do a lot more in the online and the mobile spaces with partnerships, production partnerships with brands. And that's sort of one step ahead of the native advertising. Yep. And that's where we're going to move more and more into as we move more and more into these platforms.
And I think you told me once that virtually every brand partner is renewed. So they're all running metrics and determining that it is actually.
I mean, everyone now is like, wow, they just want to be close to Vice because it's cool. When we started with Intel 6 years ago, Vice A wasn't cool and scared the piss out of Intel. And you're not going to find a more sort of conservative company philosophically, besides their Moore's Law tech stuff. And it was just the metrics. They couldn't. It was the it was off the roof. I mean, they were at 8% positive, sort of brand awareness when we started. After year one, it was 38, and by the time we were in, it was 68. And so, I mean, they'd never seen numbers like that.
Well, so that allows me to say that we have some news to make here today. That we've just finalized a partnership which will allow our clients preferred access to some of the new concepts that you'll be bringing to market. So we're very excited about that. Yeah,
we're developing a lot of shows and content platforms, verticals, television, online features, and we can actually weave, brands or great companies into all of those offerings. And I think that's the real thing that we're just seeing now. We're on the cutting edge that you can actually program 3 screens, 1 screen, OTT, with a brand as your partner all along. And that's never really been done before, and it's only the ability to do it is now. And you have to sort of have enough power to be either own the platform or be persuasive enough in that platform to do that. And I think that that's going to be the cutting edge of what the native advertising buzz that happened up till now is now going to be this new space.
Well, speaking of new, one of the newest things you did was a partnership with Snapchat.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from that. It's a younger, different audience.
Yeah.
It seems to be.
Well, I think, I always say this, but everyone was building platform, but not caring about what's in the pipe, and that's what we should all care about here because it's what we do. And if you look at HBO as one platform, that ages a little bit up, and we create stuff for them, at a sort of at an older age point, and then we create different stuff for Snapchat, more in a capsule format, and it's just been a tremendous success. I mean, the metrics are overwhelming. The numbers are crazy. I was at the correspondence dinner, and I was talking about some of the Beltway old guard were like, well, we're killing it. We got 80,000 people watching. And you're like, 80,000? I think we're doing that a minute with Snapchat. So I believe we have, one of the #1 news shows in America just with Snapchat, ratings-wise. And so that's going to be a huge thing. So for us, it's a great time to be a content provider because we have HBO on one side, which is the gold standard, and then you have Snapchat, and you can really see the scale. And it's also, it ages down. It's the next generation. It's sort of, that tail that's coming up at the bottom end of Gen Y. And, they consume, all their content on mobile devices, which we all know, and we know that scale is coming from mobile. The problem is how you monetize it. And I think with Discover, you're really seeing Snapchat being ahead of the game. And the big question is how many partners will they allow in?
Yeah. So speaking of what's next, you've talked a little bit about virtual reality.
Sure.
So talk about how you see that as the next big frontier.
Well, again, I don't know who's going to win that race.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be Apple or Oculus or Facebook or Google with the $3 cardboard or the high-end stuff. But I do know that, you know, if you go and you have the experience, you're like, okay, I get it. It's HD. It's going to be everywhere. Yeah. However, if you remember back to HD, when it first started, everyone had these great HD channels. There's nothing to watch. Right. So what we said is, okay, who's actually making the stuff? And the answer is nobody. It's gaming. So, but okay, who's shooting it? Nobody. Because you have to shoot it differently. You have to have, so we actually invested in a company with a guy named Chris Milk, who's sort of at the forefront of this. And we have proprietary technology of how we shoot the sound, because the sound has to be 360 as well. We develop cameras to shoot 360. And so we're doing music, which is a no-brainer, but we're also doing news. So if Ferguson riots or Baltimore riots, you can actually, you know, do a 360 and see everything and hear everything as it's happening. So also, you know, events, you know, actually being at an event. So the idea is, I don't care who wins, if it's Samsung or Google or Oculus or whoever, but we want to have the library. We want to have all of that content, you know, so that when it hits terminal velocity, it's like when HD became ubiquitous. Yeah. When VR becomes ubiquitous, we're going to be I always use you know, no one's going to understand this, and my wife always cautions me never to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, is in the movie Mad Max, which they're remaking, so now finally I'll be relevant again. He was like, 2 days ago I saw a rig that could hold that tanker. You want to get out of here? You talk to me, right? Thank you. My wife was right. But basically, if you want VR content, you're going to have to come device. And that's, if brands want to be at the cutting edge of news or music or food, lifestyle, then they should be stockpiling VR content. The only problem is, if you're going to stockpile VR content, then you have to have the cameras, you have to have the sound, you have to have all that stuff, and no one's doing that but us. So I know that the first guy said that you weren't here, you weren't going to get anything sold to you. I'm selling you right now. I'm breaking all the rules. I'm disrupting.
Okay, so next year's event, streamed on mobile devices, VR.
Exactly.
That's what we're all going to be experiencing.
Well, look, mobile VR, it's already there. It's just which is going to become standard, because, you know, Google's got one for $3 at everybody.
But I'll miss hugging you. So.
All right. We can hug.
All right. Always great to talk to you. Thank you very much, Shane Smith.